Block content. What's happening, my Block buddies? This is Blocked Content. My name is Callum, and we're finally back. It's been a while. I know. I've been away. I've kind of been living under a rock as far as all this news and all this amazing stuff has happened. So, I'm kind of getting back into the swing of things, but Block Content really feels like home. You guys really feel like home. And even though life kind of happened and a lot of cool projects came on my way, like, directing and creating a feature film, a lot of these things that I love are still here, and they're waiting for the news to be reported. So I'm here, there for you, and I hope that you'll be joining me in some awesome news that we've just uncovered. Because apparently, we've gotten all these cool consoles, these classic mini consoles of the NES, and now the new Super Nintendo as well, which... oh wow, that's amazing to me. I am such a big fan of the classic consoles coming back in a smaller form, and it looks really cool. They feel the same, but to me, it always kind of missed that little spark that I had when I was growing up, because I owned all the classic Nintendo consoles, right? I owned the NES, I owned the Super Nintendo, but my real thing was the Nintendo 64. That was what I grew up on, really. That's what I was constantly playing every single day of my life. I would just, go to school, and when I got back, I just plug in those controllers, I just go at it again. And to me, those classic consoles, that concept really works well, but, if you think about it, the Nintendo 64, we've never really seen, game compilations of something like that before, because emulators, it would be really easy to do something like an NES collection or Super Nintendo, but compiling a lot of Nintendo 64 games, even back in the Wii days of things, we would have the virtual console games for Nintendo 64. That was a big deal, but, you'd download them one at a time, you'd buy them one at a time, and now the idea of having a lot of those games in one package, that'd be really exciting. And it's exciting to think of the possibilities as far as what kind of games would be on a thing like that, right? So the news actually comes to me from VGLeaks.com saying Nintendo filed a trademark for Nintendo 64 controller. So mind you, this is not a trademark for the actual console, the Nintendo 64 Mini or something like that, the classic Nintendo 64. They report that the Big N is at it again on the top. Switch is selling a ton of machines, and the Mini Classic formula is a win-win for the customers. This season, we could play with a mini version of the Super NES, and the next year, the turn could be for the N64, the console where Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time were born. So they're basically saying, yes, we've been doing really well with these classic consoles, but we might be getting something really amazing. And that'd be, to me, such a big move on Nintendo's part, because we could never really see these kind of things coming back in the days of the Virtual Console, right? I mean, it kind of felt like they were squeezing out as much as they could with the old games, and now it feels like we're getting them all compiled into one. So Nintendo has filed a trademark for the Nintendo 64 controller. So, the classic controller with the 3 hilts, which was always really weird but really awesome at the same time. So the movement could anticipate a mini classic machine based on the Nintendo 64 for next year, or maybe the year after that. Or maybe they are just protecting their properties. People, they file trademarks to kind of protect their brand from not getting stolen and anything like that. But these things are always at a critical time. If Nintendo is now developing a class, they're seeing the Super Nintendo Classic, they're seeing it getting sold out everywhere, and there not being enough, and they can kind of anticipate, okay, so this product is already selling like hotcakes, so what if we already work on the next iteration of this? And of course that'd be the classic Nintendo 64. Now, I don't know how much further they're going to go with something like this, because they could pretty much do the classic GameCube as well, but then getting a classic Wii, that'd be kind of weird, right? So probably it would stop there, but the Nintendo 64 does kind of now feel like retro tech, right? It kind of feels like the retro console, and the GameCube to me is not really all that retro, maybe that's just because I was born, in the 90s, But maybe they're protecting their properties, and the website says they would bet for the first possibility, which is of course the console maybe being in the works, which would be really awesome. They say, I would not understand the release of this mini machine without the games developed by Rare. I hope Nintendo could reach an agreement for those games. Yes, this is true. The games that Rare created, games like Diddy Kong Racing and also Banjo-Kazooie, I mean, those, Perfect Dark, those games left a gigantic mark on, video games as a whole, but also the Nintendo 64 as an era. Rare was really supporting Nintendo in those times. It would be a great, missed opportunity if those games were not included. But it kind of feels iffy because, Banjo-Kazooie had those classic games released on the Xbox. So, yeah, there's a couple of problems there. But, it's thinking, what would it look like if a classic Nintendo 64 came out? You had these cute cartridges and maybe, the controller, of course, would probably be the same size, right? That would look amazing. But yeah, what games would be included there? What extra functionality would be included in that system? I love thinking about things like that. So the very first possibility and the only one that's a definite shoe-in would be Super Mario 64. The game that defined a generation, that created this whole craze of, oh wow, these collectathons, these kind of open world-ish 3D environments. Mario does not have to walk from the left to the right of the screen. You can just have this creative open environment. That game changed everything. It had all the charm in the world. It was challenging. It had gameplay to last for years. That's what I loved about it. So that's certainly a game that would be on the box, it would be on the box and it would be represented and it would be awesome. I also think that Ocarina of Time would be a shoo-in. I love that they did the re-releases for that game on the 3DS and of course Majora's Mask as well. But I think that if they're gonna do a Nintendo 64 justice, you have in the classic NES, you have the Super Marios. In the classic Super Nintendo, you have the Mario Worlds. I mean, it only makes sense to bring their biggest because that's the ones people remember. And also, Star Fox 64 would be on there. And I think Mario Kart 64, I think has a definite, shoe-in place there. I think that's multiplayer fun in a box, so that would be really interesting to see return. And just the idea of having those rare games, Donkey Kong 64, that's a game that, did that whole formula and pretty much ran with it, and I loved it. Now, one game in particular that I would love to see, and it would be very sad if it would not be included, would be Paper Mario, the original from 2000. Paper Mario was a game that had such a staying power because it was not only Mario's, big RPG after Super Mario RPG, but it had so much charm. It had this paper aesthetic. It had the dialogue that was just so well written and so funny, but it also had these party members, this whole world building, and it was just cute, but it was challenging, but it was an RPG in a new way, and not having that in the collection would be a miss, it would be kind of sad to see. So for me, Paper Mario, definitely. Now, a lot of games that kind of fell under the radar for most people, I would love to see back there. So Star Wars Rogue Squadron, anyone? A very good Star Wars game right on there. So I would love that. Mario Party is a big one. I think maybe include 3 games, Mario Party 1, 2, and 3 would be really great fit for that kind of console, because are you going to alienate 2? Are you going to alienate the other 2 parts? That's going to be weird. Yoshi's Story is one that definitely comes to mind. And definitely, think about the opportunities for challenges in games like these, right? What if there were like functions that kind of, didn't have new levels, but kind of time trial kind of stuff, maybe online leaderboards for these kinds of games. I mean, the speedrunner community as a whole, they have a lot of grip on the Nintendo 64 era. Just think of all the amazing things people can do in Mario 64 nowadays, and that'll kind of make you happy, because that whole, era is just ripe for awesome speedrunning, and having that in one box, would make a lot of people happy. Personal favorites of mine, you can't not have Super Smash Brothers. The original Super Smash Brothers, I would buy the Nintendo 64 Mini in a heartbeat if it had Super Smash Brothers. So please do me a favor, Nintendo. If you're going to make this box, if you're going to do it, put Smash Brothers on there. With the original controller, I would be so happy. I would be done, you know? Unlocking those characters for the first time, kind of playing through the classic mode, getting to Master Hand, all those memories, you know? And gaming has evolved, and we've had all these new iterations of these games, but still, coming back to those things in a classic mini formula, that'd be so much fun. So I'm mostly very excited about this concept, but I want to know what you guys think. I mean, these were just leaked documents, and we can speculate all we want. So I really want to hear from you guys. What do you think the probability is of a Nintendo 64 Mini? Will Nintendo really go to that era to revisit that and put it all in one box? And if so, please comment down below, what are the games that have to be included for you to buy this thing? Because for me, it'd be a lot of the, safe classics. Maybe there are some games out there that are a little bit more out there that you really loved. So please let me know in the comments. And as you've seen in the intro of this video, we're now doing the comment question. So if you have an amazing answer for one of these comment questions in the beginning of the video, we will highlight them in the videos. So thank you so much for watching. You guys are always at home at Block Content, so please, if you haven't already, press that subscribe button and become part of our awesome Blocked family, and you'll get all the news directly delivered to your doorstep. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time.